Morning, Yavasasis. Satan. Panchkapaju Basaki Pasanavi Batapti Tanam Pavani Vyo Vaishnavi. So it's August 12th, 2021 with the VIHE, and we're going to be studying the Nectar of Devotion, chapters 20 through 24. This is from the Southern Ocean of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is on Vibhava, Alambana, Vishaya. So I want to thank those of you who actually wrote 3 difficult questions and turned them in on time. I'd like to again emphasize that everyone doing so greatly adds to the quality of the class for everyone. So I spent yesterday probably an hour and a half going through all those questions that were sent, really nice questions. And I've integrated most of them into the classes. So you should find your question answered within the classes, but there were some questions that I was not able to integrate. So I wanted to go over those first. So Ambika wrote, does Krishna give us a glimpse of our rasa with him before he reveals it for real? A glimpse is also real, and our rasa is revealed gradually, yes. And there was a question of what is a distasteful rasa with Krishna? So that will not be answered in today's class, but it will look at that a little bit in the class on Anubhava. And we're really not going to look at that until the last classes when we look at the Staibhavs. And yes, it is one of the 7 secondary Staibhavs. And another one was looking at Bhagavad Gita 14:26. This is a question from Sham Kishore Das. This was a really thoughtful question, where in 14:26, Krishna says, Mamchayo Vyavichari na, is that the same Vyavichari Bhav? And the answer is no, it is not. All right, all the other questions that everyone asked me, I integrated into the classes. And if you don't feel that they were answered, then you can bring them up again. All right. So this is altogether, this seminar is on chapters 20 to 34, the Southern Ocean of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So devotion, mellow or relationship, the eternal ocean. And the Southern Ocean looks at these 5 components, Vibhav, Anubhav, Sattvika Bhav, Vyabhachari Bhav, and Sthai Bhav. Without some mixture of these 5 ecstatic principles, one cannot relish transcendental bliss. So right now we're looking at the first wave, which is Vibhav. And Vibhav we're looking at in 3 parts. So today's class is going to be part 1 of the first wave. Frankly, today's class, we could probably study for 6 months. So to do even part 1 of the first wave in 2 hours, some parts we're going to be really running through. All right, so this whole first wave is chapters 20 to 26, and part 1 we're going to be looking at is in chapter 20 to 24. So chapter 20, summary, it has invocation, review of the concept of rasa, a brief overview of the Southern Ocean, the basic definition of Vibhava. Now, we went over the invocation last class in our overview, and we mentioned there that the invocation of the Southern Ocean can refer to either Sanatan Goswami or Krishna as Sanatan. And we had an excellent question from Prabhupada Priya that, well, how do we know what's the right answer? And it seems like there's 2 completely different ways of understanding this statement of Rupa Goswami. And our reply to that is in hermeneutics. So by studying hermeneutics, we're able to get a variety of right answers, but also have a boundary as to what are right answers and what are not right answers. So for those of you who've taken our hermeneutics course, I'm sure you understand that. For those who haven't, this is a plug for studying hermeneutics. So we're going to look at a definition of Vibhava. It is the cause or basis for relishing transcendental mellow. It is the stimulus. What brings out the staibhav? What brings out the basic relationship? And as I mentioned last week, we're really going to expect that you've got a basic grasp of these terms. And if you don't yet, spend some more time studying, maybe go back, listen to the recording of last week's class, because it's such a foundational thing. What stimulates our basic relationship? We may have a basic relationship for friendship, servitude, conjugal love, vatsalya bhav, whatever. What is stimulating that? And Vibhava has two main categories: Alambana, which is basic, and Udipana, which is impelling. So today's class is going to be on the Alambana Vishaya. Then next week's class is going to be on the Alambana Ashraya. The class after that will be on the Udipana. And I know there's a lot of Sanskrit terms to try to understand. So the basic Alambana for everybody, all devotees, always is Krishna. I mean, it could be a different incarnation of Krishna for some devotees, but that's the object of love. So what is it that brings out our love? Krishna brings out our love. And then the other thing that brings out our love are the devotees of Krishna. We could think of it like, the devotees are like a pot holding this nectar of Krishna. They're like the vessel. And generally, the Vishaya is a devotee in a similar relationship. Those of you who are parents, you can think of it like, your love for your child, right? It's brought out by your child, and it's also brought out, hopefully, by the other parent. So you see your wife dealing with your child helps you to love your child. You see your husband dealing with your child helps you to love your child. You see your grandmother dealing with your child helps you to love your child. So your love for your child is impelled by your child, and it's also impelled by other people who have some similar love for your child. Then Udipana, impelling, your love for your child may be inspired by a drawing your child did. It may be impelled by your child's shoes, right? It may be impelled by the way your child speaks. And you'll notice that Krishna's qualities are listed in Udipana, but we're going to look at them as part of Vishaya. So again, today's class is focusing on Vishaya. Now, again, these are the different aspects of rasa. In order to have rasa, all of these have to be involved. And someone asked, are these manifested bhava? The answer is yes. Are they transcendental? The answer is yes. However, there's also shadows of these. There's also shadows and reflections of all of these. So a person who's not at bhava might experience a shadow or reflection of these at various times. Also, all of these are involved in any relationship, even mundane relationships. And this whole science was originally taught by Bharat Muni. So Rupa Goswami adopted the system taught by Bharat Muni to transcendence. And yes, we will find all these also taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, interesting enough to Sanatana Goswami, but it was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who explained love of God in terms of the principles that Bharat Muni taught, and then Rupa Goswami who put that into the Nectar of Devotion. These are always involved with anything that we do. So Kamalini asked the excellent question, that is what we do always impelled by some sort of taste? She said, suppose they're impelled by fear or obligation, but that's another kind of taste. So fear or disgust or anger is another kind of taste. It's another kind of staibhav. And therefore, that's another kind of rasa. If people didn't enjoy anger and fear, they wouldn't go to political rallies, they wouldn't go to sporting events, they wouldn't see scary movies or horror movies. So those are also kinds of rasa. When we're saying rasa, we don't just mean ice cream, we can also mean bitter melon, we can also mean chutneys. There's so many varieties of rasa or taste, but all of these are always involved. The basic connection that we have, let's say we see Krishna as our friend, what stimulates that relationship, which will be Krishna, the devotees who are also friends, and other aspects of Krishna, voluntary expression, how we express that friendship, purposely, involuntary expression, how we express that friendship automatically, the various emotions that come in with friendship, and all of those together give us a taste. Now, one person asked a very excellent question from chapter 20, paragraph 3, second line. He quoted, "The different types of rasa, when combined together, help one to taste the mellow of devotional service in the highest degree of transcendental ecstasy." And he was asking, does that mean there's some combination of the rasas of servitude, parental, conjugal? No. Srila Prabhupada mentioned several times in Nectar Devotion that he was having a difficult time translating these words into English. And we should keep in mind the Nectar Devotion was written very early in the Hare Krishna movement. So Srila Prabhupada was having a difficult time. He says so in the Nectar Devotion, translating these words into English, and his early Western disciples were not able to assist him in that. So we will find some kind of odd translations in the Nectar Devotion, particularly. When Prabhupada's saying the rasas combined together, he's talking about these bhavas. He's talking that when we mix together the staibhav, the vibhav, the anubhav, the sattvika bhav, the vyavichari bhav, then we taste the mellow. Tasting the mellow means rasa. So that's what he means. All right. So today's class, again, we're looking at the part of Vibhava that's Alambana. Alambana means the basic thing that brings out our love for Krishna. And we're looking at the Vishaya part, which is Krishna. So today's class is all about Krishna. And as I said, we could be giving just this one class for 6 months. So this is Krishna as the Vishaya, Krishna as the object of love. Krishna as the object of love. We're going to be looking at Krishna's qualities, personality, 16 so-called faults, and 8 extra qualities. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. We're looking at this portion of Vibhava, All right, if you haven't already done so, I'd like to ask you to have some means of taking notes. I would like you to ask some means of taking notes. We're going to have 3 group discussions during this class. And in order for you to participate in the discussion, you're going to have to have chosen some of these qualities or personality aspects or so-called faults or so-called extra qualities to discuss in your groups. So I want you to make sure that you're going to be taking notes on the ones you particularly are interested in discussing. Okay, looking at chapter 21. Chapter 21 discusses 30 of Krishna's qualities. And this is understanding Krishna as the Vishaya of the Alambana of Vibhava. Again, please don't feel overwhelmed by these Sanskrit terms. You will get it. So Krishna as the Vishaya can mean Krishna himself. It can also mean Krishna in any other form. Rupa Goswami is concentrating primarily on Krishna, Krishna in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. However, there can be other forms of Krishna, Nisinga, Varaha, so forth. Also, it can mean Krishna expanding as the cowherd boys. And a little note of things to come, which we will discuss later. When Krishna expands as the cowherd boys, he's acting as both the Ashraya and the Vishaya. For those of you who asked that question, 2 of you asked that question. And Krishna in his own Swarup may be disguised and undisguised. Krishna as the Vishaya, this is just overview. Don't worry, we're going to go through this in depth. So there's qualities of Krishna that are part of the Vishaya, 50 qualities that Jivas also have, 5 extra qualities that Shiva has, but the regular Jivas don't. 5 extra qualities Vishnu has, the Jivas and Shiva don't. 4 extra qualities in Krishna: Lila Madhuryam, Premna Pridadikyam, Vena Madhuryam, and Rupa Madhuryam. And these are exhibited in Dwarka, Mathura, and Vraja. Then Krishna's 4 personality types: Dhira Datta, Dhira Lalita, Dhira Prasanta, Dhira Datta. Again, over all of these. Krishna without 18 faults, but 16 of them as transcendental virtues, what I had the most fun studying for this class, and with 8 auspicious qualities. All right, this was a question a number of you brought up, because this whole class is going to be looking at Krishna's qualities and personalities. Are these Alambana or are these Udipana? Are these Alambana or are these Udipana? So if we talk about the beautiful limbs of Krishna, the emphasis is on the quality of Krishna, the beautiful limbs. In that case, the quality is an Udipana. If we talk about beautiful limbed Krishna, the emphasis is on Krishna and the quality is secondary. In that case, the quality is Alambana. So for example, if we're saying Krishna is very merciful, wow, how wonderful Krishna is that he's so merciful, then Krishna's mercy is part of the basic object of love, Krishna as Vishaya. If we're talking about Krishna's mercy, wow, Krishna's mercy manifests in the saving of, Jaghai and Madhai. Krishna's mercy manifests in the saving of Kubja. Krishna's mercy, then it's primarily on Krishna's mercy, and then it's like in Deepana. Right? If you think about it again with a material example, if you think about, well, I'm really attracted to my child. Look how nicely my child is being polite. I have such a polite child. My child, then it's the Vishaya. He's the object. If you're thinking about your child's politeness, my child the other day, he was saying please and thank you. And he's really, really good at asking for, you're looking at the politeness as the primary thing, then the politeness is Udip. Right. So there's quality share with all living beings. We're not going to read this. These are the 51st qualities shared with all living beings. Then the quality share with Shiva and Vishnu. There are 5 qualities shared with Shiva and Vishnu. We're going to go over each of these one by one. Qualities shared only with Lord Narayan. There's another 5 qualities. Krishna's super excellence. There's another 4 qualities. All right, covered and uncovered. So Krishna's form is very attractive with and without dress. Those of you who are pujaris or have your own deities, so you're bathing the deity and you see him without dress, and he's very attractive. And then when he's dressed, he's very attractive. Krishna as he is, and Krishna disguised, like Krishna disguised as a woman. All right, we're going to go through the qualities shared with all living beings one by one. We are going to go through these rather quickly. We're going to go through these rather quickly. We're going to go through all 64 qualities rather quickly. Please take some notes. Pick out 5 of your favorite qualities. 5 of your favorite qualities. Okay, we're going to go through all of them in 25 minutes. I'm not going to be reading every word on every slide. Actually, 20 minutes. All right. We started about 5 minutes late, so that's shifting us a little bit. So Krishna has beautiful bodily features: face like the moon, thighs like elephant trunks, arms like pillars, palms like lotus flowers, chest like a doorway, hips like dens, the middle of his body like a terrace. He has auspicious characteristics. Please take notes on your favorite ones as we go through this. 32 auspicious symptoms of his body, auspicious lines on his hands and feet. You'll all get a copy of this PowerPoint if you want to go more deeply. Krishna is very pleasing. That's why he's called Ruchira. He resembles a lotus flower. His face, his eyes, his 2 hands, his navel, his 2 feet. He's effulgent. Although the jewels put on him are more lustrous than the sun, still, when the jewels are put on his body, Krishna is so lustrous that what is the sun starts looking like a star. He's so strong. May the left hand of Lord Krishna, which is lifted, Govardhan hill like a ball, save you from all dangers. Ever youthful. He has these three ages: childhood, boyhood, and youth. Now, it's mentioned that the youth is the reservoir of all pleasures and the time when the highest varieties of devotional service are acceptable. So Rukmini asked a wonderful question based on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.163, that Rupa Goswami says, Sarva Bhakti Rasashaya, that the youthful age is the shelter of all of the rasas. And she wondered if that meant that all of the Stai Bhavas were most present there or most appreciated Krishna's youthful age, which doesn't make sense because we find later, right, the Kumara age is most appreciated by those in Vatsalya Bhav, the Poganda age most appreciated by those in Sakya Bhav. What's being said here is that in Krishna's youthful age, in Krishna's teenage age, all of the rasas are fully appreciated. And of course, the Madhurya ras contains the qualities of all the other rasas, not necessarily the activities, but the qualities. And therefore, at that age, Krishna is tasting the greatest variety of rasa. All right, a wonderful linguist. Krishna can speak all languages, even the languages on other planets, even the languages of the animals. So what a polyglot. He's very truthful. His word of honor is never broken. And the example is that he said he would defeat Jarasandha, and he did, even though it took a long time and it was difficult. So Krishna is always truthful, even though sometimes it takes a while. He's a very pleasing talker. And the examples given when Krishna was speaking to Kaliya to tell him to leave the Jamuna, he was so pleasing about it. He said, you know, I have to take care of my cows. Please don't mind that I'm asking you to leave because I have to take care of my cows. And he's very fluent, speaking meaningful words with all politeness and good qualities. And Uddhava says that Krishna's words can immediately change the heart of even his opponent, can immediately solve all the questions and problems of the world. Each and every word from his mouth contains volumes of meaning. He's highly learned. So this means he's highly educated and acts strictly on moral principles, which reminds us of Bhagavad Gita 13, 8-12, where learning has to do not just, you know, with degrees in IQ, but it has to do with having good character. And the examples are studying with Sandipani Muni, and how Krishna reciprocates perfectly with everybody in every different rasa and every mood. Highly intelligent, that as soon as he heard anything from Sandipani Muni, immediately he got it. And how intelligent he was to deal with the untouchable king, that he ran to the cave of Muchakunda and had this untouchable king wake up Muchakunda, who burned him to ashes because Krishna wasn't going to touch Halyavana directly. He's a genius, that he can refute any kind of opposing element with newer and newer arguments. And I love this discussion where Krishna didn't show up at night when he was supposed to. He showed up in the morning. And Radharani says, where are your clothes? Implying that Krishna left his clothes when he was dealing with another gopi. She says, where is your clothes? And Krishna says, using the same word, vasa, he says, my residence is in your beautiful eyes. She says, I didn't ask about your residence. I asked about your clothes. And he, using the same vasa to mean fragrance, he says, I have gotten this fragrance just by being associated with you. And then she gives up that tact and she says, where did you spend the night? And he turns those words around and says, could night have kidnapped me? Hopefully, as we're going through this, you're feeling stimulated to love Krishna. That's the point. These are the Vibhava, these are the stimulus for our love of Krishna, as the Alambana, the basic stimulus for our love of Krishna, as the object of our love. So Krishna, very artistic. He's nicely composed songs, how he dances and speaks funny words and plays on his flute, wearing such nice garlands. It's very hard for me to find a picture of Krishna dancing with a nice garland playing flute. All right. And someone asked, I can't remember who asked this, about the chessboard. So the way Srila Prabhupada translates this in Nectar of Devotion is he has dressed himself in such an enchanting way as though he had defeated all kinds of players at the chessboard. Now, certainly when a person is victorious in some game, then they may get, they may be dressed up for the game, and then they get the medal. If we go to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the translation is Krishna is composing songs and dancing. He is making riddles, playing the flute, stringing garlands, and drawing pictures. He is making magical objects and winning at dice against persons showing pride. He's a resident of unlimited arts. So here we're finding that Krishna is, I can't take questions in the middle. Here we're going to find that Krishna is artistic in so many ways, that Krishna is showing some artistry in so many ways. He's not just a painter, he's not just a musician, he's artistic in everything. All right, and he's also clever that he can really multitask, right? So here he's multitasking. He's sang nice songs about the cowherd boys, he's composing them, and he's looking at the gopis from his eyes, and he's getting ready to fight with Aristasura all at the same time. So that's really clever. He's expert. He can quickly execute a very difficult task. How he was able to cut to pieces all the weapons used by different fighters. Here we have Vishalva, also with Banasura, and how each gopi found Krishna at his side. He's like, okay, how am I going to dance with all these billions of gopis? And then comes up with a solution. He's very grateful. Someone who's conscious of his friend's beneficent activities and never forgets them. When Draupadi called, hey Krishna, hey Govinda, he was there. Krishna remembered Jambavan's service when he was present, when Krishna was present as Ramachandra, and therefore he accepted Jambavan as his father-in-law and showed him all respect. Very determined. How he was determined to save Draupadi. He was determined to save Arjuna. He was determined to get Satyabhama the Parijata flower. Expert judge of time and circumstances is so, the example is so funny. Krishna says, it's the full moon night in autumn in Vrindavan, and here are the most beautiful girls. Now I should perform the rasa dance. So he knew exactly what to do at the right time and place with the right people. A seer by the authority of the scriptures, Shastra Chakshus. And the example given is that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna quotes the Vedanta Sutra, although Krishna is the author of all the scriptures, right? Sarvasya Mriti Sannivisto Matasmat Yurganam Apavanam Cha Vedasya Sarvamaham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Kud Veda Vid Eva Chaham. Still, although Krishna is the author of the scriptures, he quotes the scriptures. So we had a question, I think it was from Mahalakshmi, that what about this statement that Krishna sees through the eyes of the scriptures, and this means he's glancing at the gopis? How is that an example? And if we look at Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says, the eye of scriptures which belong to Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, exists only to see the practical action in a given situation, and his lotus eyes exist only to bewilder the young women. See, by her asking this question, this slide wasn't in my presentation until yesterday. Because she asked this question, I added this. So the more of you that ask questions, the more rich the presentation will be. So Jiva Goswami comments, this is a statement made by someone in a joking mood. To see what is practical means to see the auspicious and inauspicious elements of a given situation. Wow, what's pros and cons everywhere. Pure, he can deliver someone who's sinful, and he doesn't do anything that's impure. Self-controlled, that even 16,108 wives could not agitate. Steadfast, he doesn't give up, like getting the Shamantaka jewel. Forbearing, tolerating unbearable troubles, as Krishna showed when he was a student of Sandipani Muni. Forgiving, tolerate all kinds of offenses. How he tolerated Shishupal and liberated him. Grave, how Lord Brahma came to apologize for taking the boys in cabs, and Krishna was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. My dear friends, we will never fully understand what Krishna's thinking. You know, we often ask, why is this happening? Sometimes I'll tell you something, not really understand. self-satisfied. He doesn't need to claim credit. He doesn't have any hankering. He's not agitated by distress. So he gave all credit to Bhima for killing Jarasandha. Shishupal didn't disturb him. Wouldn't that be nice? Have this quality of not being disturbed. Similar to possessing equilibrium, not affected by attachment and anger. So will reward his enemy. Here we have Vibhishan. Ram is rewarding Vibhishan, his so-called enemy. And you'll kill your son if he's an offender. So here he's killing Bhaumasura, his own son, who became an offender. Magnanimous, so that every day in Dwarka he was giving away 13,054 cows from 16,108 palaces. So one of you asked the question, you went and did the math and you said, that's a lot of cows. How did he give away that many cows every day? Where'd you put all those cows? Who did he give them to? I don't know. I don't know. Inconceivable math. Something unlimited. But a great question. A great question. I really appreciated that question. Krishna is religious. He practices religion and he teaches them to others. And it's mentioned because he was so religious, he was doing all these yagyas. So the demigods were always coming to earth for the yagyas. And because of that, their wives were unhappy because they're like, my husband's always traveling for work. So they wanted Lord Buddha to come and stop the sacrifices. And Prabhupada mentions that nowadays the demigods don't usually come because Lord Buddha stopped the sacrifices. So now they have nothing to come for anymore because there's no more sacrifice. I thought it was really. All right, chapter 22. We're looking at the rest of Krishna's qualities. Again, to impel us, this is the Vishaya. Krishna is the object of our love as the Alambana, what's basically stimulating Vibhava. Alambana is the basic stimulation of Vibhava, what stimulates our love for Krishna. All right, he's very heroic, expert in military arts. Amazing that Jarasandha's army could not hurt one of Krishna's soldiers. People love to hear about heroic persons who are expert in military arts, right? So many stories, fiction, nonfiction, about military heroes, but Krishna is the best. Compassionate. When Krishna released all the kings imprisoned by Maganendra, that's Jarasandha, cannot bear another's distress. Krishna wants to free us from our distress. And here, of course, that instead of offering obeisances to Krishna, devotees offer obeisances to his compassionate nature. So devotees offer obeisances to Radharani for Krishna's compassion. And I think it was Rukmini who asked the question, I can't remember, I think so, that whether or not this is Ashraya instead of Vishaya. And the answer is, again, all of Krishna's qualities can be understood as Udipanas. And in this case, we can say that all of Krishna's qualities are also personified by somebody. And those somebodies who personify Krishna's qualities would be Ashrayas. That's not gotten into in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but that is also there. Thank you for these questions that really mine deep. Respectful. Here's Krishna respecting Sudama Brahman. Very gentle, always showing social etiquette. Very liberal. Even if a searcher is accused even of great offenses, Krishna does not take this into consideration. He simply remembers the service. We may not like that when we look at other people's offenses, but I think we're grateful for that when we're the offender. Krishna is very shy. Right? This is when Krishna was looking at the breast of the gopis while he's holding up Govardhan Hill, and the hill started shaking and the cowherd men were worried, and Balaram smiled because he thought the cowherd men don't have anything to be worried about. Krishna thought Balaram was smiling because he noticed him looking at the breast of the gopis. And so he became shy. How he protects the surrendered souls. Here we have some pictures of Ram with Vibhishana. And that an enemy of Krishna is knowing, if I surrender, Krishna will take care of me. Always happy. And here it's mentioned that happiness is in opulence, beautiful women, jewels, money, how all of these were fabulously present in Krishna and Dwarka. well-wisher of his devotees. That Krishna sells himself to a person who just offers water and a tulsi leaf. How incredible. Controlled by love, how he agrees to let Mother Yasoda tie him up, how he accepted Sudama's one little morsel of chipped rice. What he's obliged to is the love, not the service. He doesn't care, on the externals, all auspicious, always concerned for everyone's welfare. All powerful, putting his enemies into calamities. Here we have Ram with Ravana, Nisingade, Varaha, Padasaram. His enemies are always in calamities, all famous. So Lord Balaram, when he heard Krishna's name chanted, his clothes turned white. The Yamuna turned milk. Very popular. And the examples given when Krishna entered the wrestling arena, and all of the different persons there were attracted to him in different ways. That he's partial to his devotees. Although he's not partial to anyone, if somebody worships him with love and attention, Krishna is especially kind to such a person. Attractive to all women, 16,108 wives, and like a magnet for the iron filings of the gopis, all worshipable. Vishnu forms worship him, like the story of Mahavishnu stealing the Brahmana's son. Lord Balaram worships him. All opulent. And we describe the opulence of Dwarka, but here the ornaments on the legs of the damsels of Vrindavan are more than Chintamani. Their dresses are like heavenly parijata flowers, cows of the Surabhi cows. This is one of my favorites. Again, I'm asking you to take notes on your favorite. One of my favorites is All Honorable, where the demigods are waiting. Someone needs to mute. The demigods are waiting to see Krishna, and the doorkeepers are saying, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, sit down and wait. Indra, stop reading your prayers. You're disturbing others. Varuna, go away. And the other demigods, I'm sorry, Krishna's not going to have time to see you. Someone needs to mute. This is how we know that a person is honorable, that they can make very important people wait. Okay, somebody needs to mute. Who is it that needs to mute? Somebody. Shakti Swarupini, can you please go through and see who needs to mute? All right.
I don't see anyone unmuted.
Okay, I just went through and muted somebody. Okay, Supreme Controller. All right, now we had a question about this one. I can't remember who asked the question. Oh, sorry, maybe it was Prabhupada Priya, but someone asked this question, that Krishna seems whimsical, that he benedicted Kaliya, right? But this shows that Krishna is a person. He doesn't just have to act according to the rules. He's independent. And by the way, we like the fact that Krishna is independent, because if Krishna just followed all the rules of karma, we'd be finished. So he's independent. He can decide, this person should be excused. This person should be punished. It's not unfair. We don't ultimately want everything to be fair. If everything is just fair, we're all in a lot of trouble. We want causeless mercy beyond fairness. All right, there's some additional qualities that we are not going to go through. Rupa Goswami just mentions them briefly in 2.131. And he says that these are just described by Lord Shiva to Parvati, and they're described by Mother Earth to Dharma the bull in Bhagavatam 1.16.27. So Kamalini asked the question about Prabhupada using the term king of religion, and asked if that's Yamaraj. The answer is no. It's the bull who personifies Dharma, different person. So we're not going to go through these qualities at all. Rupa Goswami does not go through them. Prabhupada does not go through them. We're not going to go through them. But these are also qualities that all great souls have. And so definitely Krishna also has these qualities. All right, now the qualities that Lord shares, not with jivas like you and me, but with Shiva and Vishnu. By the way, all these qualities we just mentioned, we all have all these qualities. We, the jivas, have all these qualities, isn't it? Therefore, Krishna says that when we see the self by the pure mind, we relish and rejoice in the self. So changeless. And Rupa mentions that even the devotees are not affected by Maya. So how could Krishna be affected? Knows everything. The example is given that Krishna ate that little bit from Draupadi's pot, and then Durvasa and his crew were all satisfied. Ever fresh, we get newer and newer impetuses about Krishna, that Krishna's queens couldn't leave him for a minute. Radharani says that he's expert at chiseling away the chastity of all women, which is an indication that his beauty is always fresh and fresh. Satchidananda Vigraha, his form is made of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, independently full of knowledge, reservoir of all pleasure, all pervading in all time and space, has all the mystic perfections. There's 8 of them, and then there's also many sub-perfections. Qualities now that are only shared with Narayana, not even with Lord Shiva. Inconceivable potencies present everywhere, within the universe, with all the universes, everyone's heart, every atom. Inconceivable potencies. Some example, he's talking to Kunti at the same time goes in Uttara's womb, bewilders Lord Shiva and Brahma, protects his devotees always, defeated Brahma in the Brahma Vimohana Leela, defeated Indra over the Parijata flower. Narada called Indra an insignificant ant. Went to Yamaloka to deliver the son of his teacher, which is again breaking karma, showing that he's independent, that his body generates innumerable universes. And he has so many incarnations like waves of the river, giving salvation to the enemies that he kills. Now, any incarnation of Krishna, we had a good question on this from someone, any incarnation of Krishna can give liberation, but we notice that sometimes the demons don't get liberated immediately. Sometimes they may have to go through several lives to get liberated. Krishna seems to liberate his enemies immediately when he kills them. Attractor of liberated souls, so beyond liberation. Now, Krishna's super excellence. Now, Narayana has these qualities, but he doesn't manifest them. So wonderful activities, the sweetness of all of his pastimes, like the Rasa Leela, the variety of his loving devotees. So Krishna exhibits more variety of loving devotees than any other incarnation. His attractive flute that stops Lord Shiva from playing his drum, that the Kumaras are disturbed in their meditation. Lord Brahma becomes astonished, and Anantadev, who was calmly holding the planet, starts moving. And someone asked, well, how can these demigods like Brahma and Indra who heard Krishna's flute still become bewildered? Yeah, even Daksha, who saw Lord Vishnu and experienced Bhava, became bewildered. So we always have free will. Krishna's exquisite beauty. So Krishna makes his ornaments beautiful. All right, we're going to go now to a breakout room, and we're going to have 10 minutes in this breakout room. And what you're going to be doing is discussing your favorite qualities of these 64 qualities. Which of these qualities really inspire you in your Krishna consciousness? You can also discuss other pastimes that show this quality that you really like. So which of these qualities inspire you? Which of these qualities are manifest in some pastimes? And Shakti Swarupini, are you going to do this? We're going to have 10 minutes.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so yes, right now. Hare Krishna. So I hope that you all enjoyed that, relished some transcendental bliss. We had a question as to why is all this about relishing and all this about enjoying? Isn't Krishna the enjoyer? Yes, Krishna is the enjoyer, and the thing he enjoys most is when we enjoy with him. Prabhupada says we should dance with Krishna, not dance alone or dance with anyone else. Just like our greatest enjoyment is to make someone happy. And our greatest enjoyment is when someone becomes happy because of us. So Krishna's like that too. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is saying, when will I be experiencing all the symptoms of ecstasy? All right, we started a little late because of technical glitches, so we're running a little bit late. Please take a full 10-minute break. Have it be a real break. Get up, walk around, drink some water, chant some Hare Krishna, get away from your phone and computer, take a real break for your body and mind. Take a break. We'll see you back here in 10 minutes. If I can do that. Very good. Okay. So, hope you're all back. We're going to go on now to Krishna's personality. Wow, Krishna's personality. So a summary of this chapter. So we're going on with Vibhava. Vibhava again means what impels us, what stimulates us to love Krishna. And the Vishaya, which is part of the Alambana, Krishna as the object. And Rupa Goswami explains that Krishna manifests his sweetly smelling qualities in 3 gradations of fullness when he's in Goloka Vrindavan. They're most perfect, Dwarka, very perfect, and Mathura, perfect, and then 4 personality types. So Krishna's exquisite beauty, and here we have Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. The sweetness of his form, sweetness of his form. Perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. You know, in English, it doesn't make sense. If you're perfect, you're perfect. How could you be more perfect than perfect? And that's the divine. And this is an important point, this idea of manifesting. So it's not that Krishna doesn't have all his qualities everywhere, but he doesn't manifest them all everywhere. It's the same with Narayana. Narayana is not a different God. It's just, he's not manifesting everything. All right. Now, Krishna's personality is Dhira Datta, Dhira Lalita, Dhira Prasanta, and Dhira Datta. Now, these are contradictory to each other, but Krishna encompasses everything. For each of us, we have certain qualities and we don't have other qualities. Right? If we're really diplomatic, we're not so straightforward. If we're really straightforward, we're not so diplomatic. But Krishna can be completely, perfectly diplomatic and perfectly straightforward. So in addition to Krishna's 64 qualities being a stimulus for ecstatic love, his personality is a stimulus for ecstatic love. Now, Dhira Datta is the noble hero. And please, again, be taking notes, be taking notes, be taking notes, be taking notes, because we're going to have discussions on this. And you're going to be discussing what's your favorite of Krishna's personality types. So do take notes and be thinking about that. Dhira Lalita is the romantic, fun-loving guy, the party guy. Dhira Prasanta is the peaceful gentleman. Dhira Datta is the haughty bad boy. We can think that, again, Rupa Goswami is getting this from Bharat Muni. These are your 4 typical heroes. And if we think about even modern fiction and nonfiction heroes, they're in one of these types. They're either a noble hero, or they're a romantic, fun-loving party guy, or they're a gentleman, or they're a bad boy. Now, in Rupa Goswami's Ujjwala Nilamani, which is a continuation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu just on Madhurya Bhav, he says that these 4 personality types manifest as Krishna, married Krishna and unmarried Krishna. We're not going to be explaining this. We're just simply bringing it up. So again, this is the Vibhava, the stimulus, Alambana, the basic stimulus. Of the basic stimulus, Krishna as the object of love. So Krishna as a husband, Krishna as a paramour, and then these 4 types. So that's 4 times 2, we have 8. Then we have, again, within that another 4, favorable, compliant, deceitful, impudent. And then we have the 3 we've already mentioned, Dwarka, Mathura, and Vraja. When these are multiplied, you get 96 types of Krishna, you could say, depending on these. So of course, it's actually unlimited. It's explained when Krishna married the 16,100 queens, each form was somewhat manifesting somewhat different natures according to the desires of the queens. So we just briefly looked at Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan, and we're going to briefly look at the 4 main personality types, but it's so much richer than that. And these are explained in Ujjwal and Yamani. They're explained in terms of Madhurya Bhav, not in terms of the other rasas, in terms of the conjugal ras only, but they're explained there in greater depth. And we have a question that somebody, so we're going to go back here again. There we go. Perfect is in Dwarka, more perfect is in Mathura, most perfect is in Vraja. All right. So Dhirodatta, I wasn't able to do this for the other 3. Maybe somebody could do that. But the qualities of Dhirodatta from the 64 qualities are grave, gentle, forgiving, merciful, compassionate, determined, humble, shy, qualified, expert, chivalrous, and physically attractive. And this is particularly shown when Krishna lives Govardhan Hill. He is the Dhirodatta again is the noble hero, the noble hero. Noble hero. So some other examples of this, Krishna with Putana, who sent her back to Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, when he told Balavabhata that he who disobeys the Swami is a prostitute, with Lord Brahma, after the Brahma Mohan Lila, while speaking the Bhagavad Gita, the noble hero, being kind in spite of being offended, being controlled by verses of praise, his modesty, not being boastful, inscrutable nature. One example of Dhirodatta is Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra really exemplifies this noble hero, always following Dharma, very heroic, very handsome. All right, now Dhira Lalita. Dhira Lalita is the fun boy, the party boy, very funny, always youthful, expert joking, not worried about anything, domesticated and submissive to his lover. Now, this form is not seen in any other form of Krishna. This aspect of Dhira Lalita is just Krishna and Balaram, not Ram, not Narayana. Yeah. This is shown when Krishna tells the gopis to go home after when they came for the rasa dance. And the example given here is how Krishna embarrasses Radharani. So Mahalakshmi asked the question that if Dhira Lalita is very submissive to his girlfriends, why is he embarrassing Radharani? By talking about their intimate pastimes and drawing pictures on her breasts. Because this is something that the fun boy and the party boy does. He embarrasses his girlfriends. They like being embarrassed like that. They enjoy it. It's part of the enjoyment. Kind of a wild person. Cupid exemplifies this Dhira Lalita. Then we have Dhira Prasanta. This is the gentleman, the peaceful, sober gentleman. Considerate, obliging. And some examples of this is when he was Arjuna's charioteer. This is like kind of the mood of a servant of his devotees. That he discussed Dharma with Yudhisthira, how he was serving the Pandavas. And so anyway, this picture is of consoling Draupadi after the gambling match. It's a consummate gentleman. And Maharaj Yudhisthira exemplifies this Dhira Prasanta. This real gentleman. It's interesting, Maharaj Yudhisthira is much more the gentleman than he is the noble hero, isn't it? Yeah. Then Dhirodhata. This is the bad boy. One who's envious, proud, easily angered, restless, and complacent. Now, they appear to be faults, but they're excellent for certain pastimes. When Krishna said to Kalyavana, he said, you should immediately go and find some dark well for your residence because you're a sinful frog and I'm a black snake who's going to devour all sinful frogs. So the tough guy, who's willing to be nasty sometimes. I think about Varaha talking to Hiranyaka. And Bhima.
Can you explain it again? The previous two.
I really don't have time, Mahalakshmi. You see the PowerPoint later. I'll distribute it to everybody. I don't have time. Sorry. Bhima exemplifies Dhirodhata. Okay, we're going to have another breakout session. So here you're going to be discussing these 4 types. Krishna as the noble hero, Dhirodhata. Krishna as the fun-loving party boy, Dhiralalita. Krishna as the gentleman, Dhiraprasanta, and Krishna as the bad boy, Dhirodhata. So you're going to be discussing these. Which of these do you particularly like? You can also talk about some pastimes that exemplify these beyond what was discussed. Okay, so I'm going to set up the breakout rooms this time. We're going to recreate them. Well, that's not, no. Okay, a second here. So breakout room, how do I
have done it, Mataji.
Oh, you've already done it. Oh, that's why I couldn't have done it. Okay, so we're going to do this for 10 minutes. 10 minutes in the breakout room, starting now.
I am not getting any group. Hare Krishna.
Yes, I hear you. You're assigned to a group, so I don't see why you're assigned to group 2.
No, but I am not. I don't have any screen to click on.
Okay, I'll move you to another room. Okay, I'll move you to room 3.
Thank you.
If you're haven't joined your room, please join your room. Please join your room. Keshava Hari, please join your room. Radha Paladuli, please join your room. Achintarupa, please join your room.
Madhuri Gorangi, his black one is khas, and he forgot what is the other one, but he said
Is that Shakti Swarupini?
it could be Prem. I think usually sometimes you get a message. And that if you receive, you share this number 674 to them. Something came in my name and I was in Prasad, so I didn't receive the call. Will come tomorrow. Oh, because we are putting both numbers for my people.
Declare Simran, after you have a message, Simran Anubha Meenakshi and one more girl is wanting to come first woman.
So take the fourth name as small.
Prabhu, can I ask,
No,
what was the sample given?
no, you may not. No, you may not. Okay, so thank you. I hope that you all, enjoyed that. I hope you all relished that. Again, as we were explaining, Krishna enjoys when we are relishing him as the Vishaya. All right, now we're going to go on to what was my favorite part of preparing this section, and something that I hadn't anticipated or really gotten into before, and it was just so wonderful. All right, so we're about to go into something amazing. All right, so I'm sure as you noticed in your breakout room in discussing this, that these different personality types seem to be somewhat contradictory. But again, Krishna can resolve all of these. So the next section is about 18 faults that Krishna doesn't have: bewilderment, sleep, error, material attachment without prema, material lust, which brings suffering, fickleness, intoxication, envy, violence, exhaustion, toil, lying, anger, hankering, worry, absorption in worldly affairs, prejudice, and dependence on others. Guess what? Of those 18 faults that Krishna doesn't have, he actually has 16 of them in a perfect form. So let's look at the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the 8th shower. He says, the scriptures proclaim that the Lord's qualities are absolutely free from these discrepancies. Occasionally, Kripa Shakti arranges the display of some of these discrepancies in the dealings of Krishna, Ram, and so on, and the devotees then perceive them. By the ingenuity of Kripa Shakti, however, these same faults are transformed from banality to divine magnificence. There's a wonderful, wonderful commentary of Jiva Goswami in his Priti Sandarbha, verses 117 to 144. We're not going to go over that in today's class, but if you want to reference this more deeply, you can go to the Priti Sandarbha, verses 117 through 144, where he describes these faults as good qualities. Now, the same Jiva Goswami in his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, verse 248, which you all have in the materials that you were given, he describes 16 of these 18 faults as existing in Krishna in a perfect form, and the rest of this section is going to be from Jiva Goswami's commentary. And he quotes a lot from the Bhagavatam in this commentary. He's quoting from 1077:31. How can lamentation, bewilderment, material affection, or fear, all born out of ignorance, be ascribed to the infinite Supreme Lord, whose perception, knowledge, and power are all similarly infinite? And they're good qualities in relationship to prema. So we're going to look at each of them, and we're going to have one last breakout session. So take notes. We're going to be looking at 16 of Krishna's faults that are actually good qualities. Then we're going to be looking at 8 additional qualities. Again, take notes. Pick out the 5 that you find the most acting in your life as a Vibhava, as the stimulus for your attraction to Krishna. So the first so-called fault that's actually a good quality is bewilderment. Here, Jiva Goswami is quoting from 10:13:16 of the Bhagavatam, how when Krishna was looking for his boys and calves after Brahma had stole them, he became bewildered. For sleep, exhaustion, and toil, those 3 so-called faults, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:15:16. How Krishna sometimes was tired and lay down, and the boys were fanning him, massaging him, and singing to him. Error, this so-called fault, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:8:22, how when Krishna and Balaram would be dragged around by the animals, they'd get all muddy, and then they'd stand up and they'd look for their mothers, and they would grab somebody. You see little children do this all the time. They grab somebody who wasn't their mother, and then they look up and like, oh, you're not my mother. And then they got scared, and then they went to their real mothers. Okay, Jiva Goswami says the fault of material attachment without prema does not exist in Krishna. So there's no there's no equivalent in Krishna. And the fault of material lust, which brings grief, also does not exist in Krishna. In Krishna, he has only prema. For the so-called fault of fickleness, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:8-29, 10:8-29, how Krishna would release the calves before milking time. He would steal yogurt, butter, and milk. He would then feed it to the monkeys. He'd break the pots, right? He would agitate the children by pinching them. For the so-called fault of intoxication, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:35-24, that Krishna's eyes were rolling in intoxication. For the so-called fault of envy, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:25-16, where Krishna says, by my mystic power, I will completely counteract this disturbance caused by Indra. Demigods like Indra are proud of their opulence, and out of foolishness, they falsely consider themselves the Lord of the universe. I will now destroy such ignorance. So this appears to be envy of Indra. For violence, Jiva Goswami doesn't quote anything. He just says there's so many examples of Krishna engaging in violence. So we have pictures here of the fight with the demigods about Banasura, killing Keshi, killing Aristasura. For lying, Jiva Goswami gives an example from Bhagavatam 10:8-35, where Krishna says to his mother, I never ate dirt. All my friends complaining about me are liars. If you think they are truthful, you can directly look in my mouth and see. Jiva Goswami also gives the example of Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima getting in disguise with Jarasandha. For anger, he just says there's so many examples. Here we have Krishna picking up the wheel with Bhishma, Lord Chaitanya with Jagai and Madai, Krishna with Kamsa. I noticed with all these pictures that I found Krishna's right arm is up in anger. But again, in Krishna, it's a good quality. For us, we're not supposed to allow ourselves to give in to anger. For hankering, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:9-4, how Krishna wanted to drink Yasoda's breast milk when she was churning butter, and he stopped her from churning butter. For worry, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 10:13-17, when Krishna could not find the boys and calves after Lord Brahma stole them, he was worried. This one I really liked. Jiva Goswami says that the Lord is absorbed in worldly affairs because he wants to maintain the universe related to devotees by Brahma. If he didn't have this quality, we would be in a lot of trouble. And we can also be absorbed in worldly affairs in service to Krishna to maintain the universe. Prejudice. Here Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavad Gita 9:29, that he's not partial or envious, but yet he's a friend to his devotees. For dependency on others, Jiva Goswami quotes Bhagavatam 9:4-63, which is Vishnu speaking to Durvasa about Ambarish, how he's under the control of his devotees. What I illustrated here was Krishna stealing the pot of sweet rice for Madhavendra Puri. So these faults, lamentation, bewilderment, and material affection and fear, when they originate from ignorance, are not in the Lord, but when they originate from knowledge, imagine that. Lamentation, bewilderment, material affection, and fear originating from knowledge are in the Lord. And these qualities can also be present in the devotees. The gopis became bewildered when Krishna left Ras Lila, and they thought they were Krishna. The example Jiva Goswami gives about how they're present in the devotees is from Bhagavatam 10:12-44, that when Sukadev Goswami remembered Krishna, he lost contact with the actions of his senses and with great difficulty was able to get back his external consciousness to talk about Krishna Katha. So he was apparently bewildered. All right, I hope you've taken some notes. Going on to chapter 24. Rupa Goswami wants to further describe the transcendental qualities. And Rupa Goswami says in 2.1-271 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that these qualities were part of the 64 qualities, but because they're remarkable, they're described again. So these are decorated, merciful toward the unfortunate, powerful, superior, chivalrous, enthusiastic, expert, and truthful, decorated. This is so wonderful. I love this one. At first, Krishna thought, let me retaliate against this vengeance of Indra by destroying his heavenly kingdom. But later on, when he thought of the insignificance of the king of heaven, Krishna changed his mind and felt merciful towards Indra. No one is able to tolerate the wrath of Krishna. So instead of retaliating against Indra, he simply showed his compassion for his friends in Vrindavan by lifting the whole of Govardhan Hill to protect them. So first he's like, I'll finish that heavenly planet of Indra. Oh, who cares? Indra is so insignificant. Let me just forget about Indra, not do anything against Indra, but let me just take care of my friends. Very good policy when we are being attacked by somebody. Instead of wasting our time counterattacking, take care of our friends. Krishna is always enjoying. He's always happy. And the example was when he entered the wrestling arena. Just happy, even though it was supposedly arranged for his death. Pleasing. Oh, this was wonderful. I was able to find this picture that was made to illustrate this particular quote. One day while Krishna was awaiting the arrival of Srimati Radharani by the bank of the Yamuna, he began to make a garland of kadamba flowers. Well, they aren't kadamba flowers, they're lotuses, that is a difference. In the meantime, Srimati Radharani appeared there, and at that time, Murari Krishna, the enemy of Murari, glanced over Radharani very sweetly. Dependable. This is also, I don't know, I really like this section. I hope you're taking notes on which ones you like out of the 16 so-called faults and these 8 other good qualities. So this is also something that I find very attractive about Krishna, that the demons, they're like, we may be demons, but without good cause, Krishna is not going to attack us. So we don't have to worry. We can depend on him, but he's not going to attack us without good cause. And the demigods, even though they're demons, they're like, Krishna's going to protect us so we can do our sporting activities. And this last one is so wonderful for people like me, persons who've never undergone the reformatory ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas. They know that Krishna wants faith and devotion. Krishna's steady, even in reverses. When Krishna's fighting with Banasura, a devotee of Lord Shiva and Durga are very angry at him. He doesn't care. He's steady, not disturbed. Predominating. In 2 ways, he can affect everyone's mind, which was seen in the wrestling arena. Everyone was affected by him. And intolerant of being neglected, which is kind of the opposite of some of these other ones, isn't it? That when Kamsa was insulting Maharaj Nanda, and Vasudev asked Krishna's assistance, Krishna was intolerant. Okay, I'm going to kill Kamsa. This I also like, a meticulous dresser, which means he's expert at dressing other people. So he's expert at dressing and decorating Srimati Radharani. And that even before he kills a demon, he's fixing his clothes and his belt before he goes to fight. Magnanimous. And Prabhupada gives the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is always willing to deliver his devotee. And magnanimous, that even though Krishna is independent, this is so sweet, even though Krishna is independent, he still depends on Gargamuni for religious instruction, for Satyaki on the military art, and dependent on his friend Uddhava. In other words, even though Krishna's independent and he can do everything, he's so kind, he's so magnanimous that he acts as if he's dependent on our service. He acts as if he's dependent on our service, like the parent may act as if they're dependent on their little child. Would you get this? The other day, we got some new backdrops for the deities, and each one of them was wrapped up in plastic. And my great-grandson, Abhimanyu, was opening up the plastic for each of them. I could have done that myself. I was grateful that he did it. He was actually helping me. But Krishna's like that with us. All right, we have our last breakout session for 10 minutes. So of the 16 faults, so-called faults that appear, that are actually are good qualities, and of these 8 other qualities, once again, same thing. Pick some that you really like, that really inspired you, that act as a Vibhava for you. You can also mention pastimes in which they appear. Okay, we can go into that last breakout room for 10 minutes. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We have a few more things to go over, but before we do, as we had said in last week's class, that I would like all of you to keep a reflection journal. So hopefully you did that after last class. If you can open that up on your computer or in writing and we're going to take individually, we do have a few more things to go over in this class. But before we do that, I'd like to give everybody 2 minutes. Please write something in your reflection journal. What did you learn? What would you like to study more? What realization did you have? So we're going to take 2 minutes to do that.
Mataji, from this class right now, Mataji?
Ah,
Yes, okay.
so please write in your own reflection journal that you're going to be keeping for yourself. I'll give you 1 more minute. Okay, if you didn't finish, you can finish after the class on your own. All right, so please write that for yourself. Of keeping this kind of reflection journal is something you may want to refer to even some years from now. So again, just reviewing that the Sai Bhav is affected by the Vibhava, the Anubhav, Satvika Bhav, the Vichari Bhav, which is what altogether brings rasa. And today we looked at the Vibhava, the stimulus, what brings out our feelings of love for Krishna. And the Vibhava again has 2 categories, the Alambana or basic, and the Udipana, which is impelling under the basic. There's another 2 categories, Vishaya Krishna, Ashraya, the devotees. So what we have looked at today is Vibhava, or the stimulant, the Alambana, the basic stimulant, Vishaya Krishna. Next week, we're going to be looking at the Vibhava, Alambana, Ashraya, the devotees, the different categories of devotees that stimulate love for God. So I'm asking, we got a lot of nice questions for this class. I added probably, 5 new slides to this class just yesterday from the questions that were asked. So please write for next week's class. 3 questions. They should be difficult questions, questions that I can't answer. Do your best to write questions that I'm not able to answer. They need to be turned into Shakti Swarupini 24 hours in advance. I will not accept any questions after that. And the reason for that is this class starts for me at 5:30 in the morning. So I'm not going to be able to research any question that I get at 1 o'clock in the morning. So in order for me to read the questions and research them and integrate them, I need them a full 24 hours in advance. Okay, so we look forward to seeing you next week. I hope that in studying for this class and discussing with this class with the devotees, much chitta magata pranam bodhayantas prasram. I hope you felt much satisfaction and bliss. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, without whom we would not have the Nectar of Devotion. All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami, who wrote the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came to bring Krishna consciousness to the world. Again, please submit your questions for next class 24 hours in advance. I hope that I've been able to serve you in some way by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Whatever good you have found here is by his mercy, and whatever faults I have displayed, please do not emulate them, and please excuse me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.